Star Wars is woke?
Her name was Leia. She was a princess with a Danish on each ear and Darth Vader drawing near. So R2D.
I hate that I felt the need to do that, but I need the right people and the wrong people in the room right now. I live in America, and America is on fire. A big point of conversation is diversity. Diversity in arts and media, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs at universities and other institutions. These programs are objectively under attack. Whether you think those programs should exist in the first place is up to you. It shouldn't be up to debate, but opinions are like force users. There's good ones, bad ones, and ugly ones. Anyways, Star Wars. The Star Wars fandom is an utter mess. We all know this. Just searching up the word on Star Wars on YouTube is a leap of faith. The atmosphere in which my first Star Wars Visions video was made was the same time The Acolyte was being released, which was definitely a controversial Star Wars release. From canon breaking plot developments to, oh no, there's black people. If you don't like The Acolyte, I'm not calling you unequivocally racist, by the way. That's not my call to make. Some of you are. You guys are all too good at outing yourself. I don't need to do it for you. But not all. No Star Wars project is perfect. Pre-Disney, post-Disney, doesn't matter. I promised myself I would never be the guy who makes Star Wars videos, but my first Visions video is my most well-loved video on this channel. So we're doing a May the 4th Be With You trilogy of videos exploring the past, present, and future of the Star Wars franchise, and what we can learn from that. Because, above all, art is learning. If you're already thinking about clicking off because I got political real quick, don't. Art is political. Star Wars is political. You are political. Just by the very nature of being annoyed by my opening. This channel is not an echo chamber for whatever belief system you hold, no matter how close your beliefs are to mine. My desire is to challenge you and you to challenge me. Belief affirmation is useless to me. Diving deeper into what you believe is useful, but the repetition of what you already believe is utterly redundant and a waste of time. So let me challenge you. Community, family, friendship. It's all a core part of the Star Wars series. The Rebels are people from all walks of life, banding together for the one purpose of ridding the galaxy of a fascist despot in the Empire and the Emperor. You even get down to the Jedi Order of the Republic. When you were a Jedi, you couldn't marry. It was like a priesthood role. You were set apart to protect the Republic, but this role didn't stop everybody. Anakin fell in love with Padme. We all know how that went down. But it's not all bad. As exhibited in the show Rebels, there's also a found family aspect in fighting the good fight against the Empire. In the words of Rose in The Last Jedi,
I saved you. Tell me. That's how we're gonna win. Not fighting what we hate. Saving what we love.
and the spirit of belonging is alive and well in Star Wars Visions Season 2. Because how else are we to survive against evil forces than to hold on to each other? And with depictions of families comes with the specific depictions of one's cultural family experience, which is no better highlighted than in Volume 2 of Star Wars Visions. There's a wonderful interview on the website Geeks of Color that dives into this, especially with the episode In the Stars, which we'll dive into later.
You know, what's interesting about it is, for Punk Robot, it was very important that it was Chile, It couldn't be Argentina, or it would have been just that slight difference. And I would say that's true. And, I would say that is true with Ireland. They have their very familiar accents. So it just places it authentically. I feel that as well. Just to hear those accents, even in Sith, she sounded very Spanish to me. And that fits with her look and with the colors in that short. It just places it very authentically.
Authenticity. That's something so core to the spirit of Visions, is giving light to every shade of the Star Wars universe, reflected in the variety of people who watch, read, and enjoy Star Wars stories. But also those who are telling the stories. And there's no more truth to that than in the 3 stories: I Am Your Mother, The Bandits of Golak, and The Pit. First we have I Am Your Mother, a hilarious, cute, and genuinely endearing story from Aardman, which has been a favorite studio of mine ever since I watched Curse of the Were-Rabbit as a kid. And this short from them showcases that the studio in all this time has never missed a step in nailing a balance of comedic flair and a human heart. It's a simple story of Annie Kalfus, a student at the Flight Academy, living with her quite embarrassing mother, Kalina. I feel like this is a very relatable relationship for plenty of people, and something that grounds this short in a nice way. Even more, there's a classism present that is more obvious as you go further into the story. In the morning, Kalina makes Annie some lunch before she heads off to flight school. But Annie urgently, trying to get to flight school without telling her mother about the family race so that she doesn't embarrass her in front of everybody, she doesn't grab her lunch, so Kalina decides she needs to get it to her. When Annie arrives at flight school, she meets up with her friends, them realizing that she didn't bring her mom. Then the trademark school bully and her bully mother come in. Nobody does British bad guys quite like Aardman. In classic Aardman fashion, Kalina flies their house ship onto the starting lines before the race can start, all to get her lunch. But Kalina's earnest care for Annie is embarrassing and reveals the lie. Kalina is shocked at first, but when mocked by the bully and her mother, Kalina takes on the challenge of entering the race, taking Annie with her. Call this a goofy movie in space. While yes, this is a quite silly short as far as Visions goes, it still has so much emotional weight to it, as Aardman always delivers on to some degree. It's a story about 2 people, a mother and daughter, trying so hard to understand each other, but not being able to. The pure pressure of wanting to perform well at the highest order in your field, but your mom is so away from the norms that you're afraid of being embarrassed, and the backbone of all of this is classism. While the subtext of the short isn't exactly subtle at all, it's very much there. Kalina is a single mom. That's already outside of plenty of cultural norms. She's extremely earnest and honest about how she loves her daughter. Clearly not the norm with the opposing mother in this story. And lastly, their house is a ship of its own. Basically the Galaxy Far, Far Away's version of a trailer park / RV, which does hint at a lower class look for this family. But that's exactly what makes this relationship wholer. I Am Your Mother was written and directed by Magdalena Osinska, a Polish-born filmmaker and mother, drawing from both of those experiences to tell this wonderful story.
What excited me about Star Wars, and honestly, the first thing that came to my head, was the famous "I am your father" line.
I am your father, the most notoriously misquoted and famous line from the Star Wars series, besides maybe "May the Force be with you." Osinska takes this classic earth-shattering line and twists it into something endearing, something real to her.
Now that I'm a mother, I've begun to analyse myself a lot as a parent. I've been thinking about my mother, and I understand her much better. The mother is inspired by both my mother and me, because I think that my son is going to eventually be embarrassed of his mum with her Polish accent and quirks.
While we love Star Wars for laser fights, quotable lines, and this grand space opera, what gives these stories staying power, narrative weight, is the humanity grounding them in what we know as universal. Absent fathers, orphans, rebels made community, love, siblings. Family means something different for everyone. Depending on what cultural background you have, what country you live in, and how much love you have between each other. I think what works really well for Visions is how it can make Star Wars feel infinitely bigger than it has ever been in the past. Actually, while writing this video, I saw a Star Wars video coming up on my For You page from a channel I'd never heard of, Orange Wall, or I think is Harrison.Kaiser, talking about what he thinks is one of the worst mistakes of Star Wars storytelling, and it's making Leia Luke's sister. And what's wrong with that, in his purview, is it makes the galaxy far, far away feel like a cul-de-sac. Let me get in your face a little bit. A bigger universe means diverse life by the very definition of the word. A galaxy far, far away with only white people and aliens, and all the white folks are related? What are we doing? This is not meant to get you up in arms trying to defend Star Wars. I love Star Wars so much. But truly, Visions is adding so much to the Star Wars story by expanding beyond the Skywalkers, beyond the saga.
Tell a story. Take the Star Wars out of it, and what happens? And I think so much of what George created with Luke looking at those twin suns. These are really stories of young people entering a new world, leaving the confines of home, and making those choices. And it's like, am I going to make a bad choice or a good choice today? It's that balance of selflessness and selfishness that either leads towards the dark with too many bad decisions, or leads towards self-enlightenment by making the right ones. So there's just such a universal language to that idea, and those kinds of stories across cultures that really resonated.
No story is more true to that than The Bandits of Golak. I seriously love and appreciate this short. It's so gosh darn cute. It's got whimsy, it's got character, it's got so much uniqueness inherent to its core. This short follows two siblings on a train with plenty of stormtrooper presence. The younger sibling has force abilities while the older is just trying to protect her from being found out by the Empire and killed. There's so much love in this short, so much texture and color lended by the Indian context of the story through the Studio 88 Pictures. And you can tell through the mixture of 3D animation and highly detailed backgrounds that there's so much care here. Not to mention the music and energy and the action of the short carrying a Bollywood vibe that makes the short feel so unique. It also feels very genuine and not like a parody of itself, which can often happen in American associated depictions of Indian stories. Also, can I say, it's so apt to tell an Indian-centric story in the Star Wars universe, given the amount of colonial presence in Indian countries for many decades. Specifically, the British Empire, not too different from the Empire. Then there's the dynamic between the two siblings, Ronnie and Sharuk.
So our hero, Charuk, is a simple boy from a farm. No powers, no training, a lot of ignorance about the political situation of the galaxy around him, and then he's thrown into this big, menacing world where he has to find the strength himself. For someone like him, the strength only comes from the protective nature that we all develop for our loved ones.
While the sibling dynamic is very central to the story, there's also the presence of an Inquisitor trying to kill the pair when he discovers that she is force sensitive. The pair being protected by an ancient Jedi in Golak. The problem of it all is after this Inquisitor is killed, This Jedi says Ronnie has to go with her and go alone. It asks the question of how worth it is the Jedi journey if you lose the ones you love. But in the end, the flute floats back up to Sharuk, and he knows the Force will protect her, and he will see his sister again. Someday, beyond all this madness, it puts forth a hope amidst fascism that only the love of family can bring, whether it's by blood or by love. Now, the Pit really pushes this ideal harder than the former two, and it holds a much darker context than the other two. When I say dark, I mean dark. Shiaito, forgive me if I'm mispronouncing. I probably am. They brought an all too real darkness to the surface, and it's quite literally slave labor at the hands of the Empire. This studio is a black-owned Japanese animation company. So with it, you get this incredible merging of influences from all around the world, from black art to anime, and a palpable history to it. Now this short hits me in a particular way, especially with what's going on in the country at this particular moment. People are disappearing. It's all too easy for people to be dehumanized, broken down, and sold to how dark the world is right now. It's hard not to feel disillusioned, doomer, or just really angry. The central idea of this short is all about the light that lives in us all, to follow the light. And if somebody forgets, use your voice to remind them. This is something Crux tells the little girl, Livy, before he makes the climb. When everyone enslaved by the Empire in this dark pit finish mining for crystals, the shackles are released. Everyone cheering, thinking they were free. Everything was going to be okay. Everything was finally going to be okay. But as the sun went down, the stormtroopers leave, and now they know that they can't depend on the Empire to save them, to let them go. So one guy out of the whole camp, Crux, takes it upon himself to climb out of the pit and get help from this amazing, glittering city nearby. This metropolis, this place of great light. So he goes around and he keeps asking for help, but then nobody listens. Nobody cares. He's just another crazy guy on the street asking for a moment of their time. They go on about their business, and night falls, and as the Kyber crystals bring light to the city, he gets up and tells the city what the Empire has been doing. That their city is powered by their slave labor, including children. But, well,
Crux's death was always part of the script from the first draft. It wasn't something we wanted to do, to make an emotional beat that heavy and kill a character, particularly a character of color. We made sure we weren't including any graphic imagery. There weren't any lightsaber fights in this movie. There are blasters, but only one is fired, and it's a stun at that. We took that very seriously.
And with the power of community, of speaking out, of reminding them what their light was made of calling out the Empire, the people of the city saved them from the pit. This is a very dark short, sadly so true to the world we live in. But it doesn't stay dark, and it brings a qualified hope to the surface. A lot of books recently, Toni Morrison, James Baldwin, W.E.B. Du Bois. It's tough to read the stories they tell and not to see how horrible the world is when we look outside. I blink, I feel it. But that's not what it's for. Dread with inaction is utterly useless. It does nothing. Following the light takes courage. It takes acknowledging what is broken, what is in the pit. It takes walking along the hurt and the broken bodies and reclaiming what's been made inhuman. Come together, and together the Force will make change.
This is Disney Star Wars woke garbage.
Let's talk about words real quick. Words originate in a certain context, and in that context exhibit a certain meaning. But what happens when one word, or even an entire vernacular, enters into a completely different context and is entirely redefined? What does woke mean? I know I keep harping on this, but it's for a purpose.
Hey man, I be listening to jazz all the time. That was Ebonics. I just said I be.
Right.
Hey, that ain't the Queen's English.
I know that. I am listening to jazz all the time.
Now you're talking.
Well, see, I knew he had broken the code, so I said I be listening. So he understands what I'm saying. Some other white guy might say, what do you say? What, huh?
Is there anything more funny than somebody just drastically white trying to speak colloquial hood?
You're the first person I've heard admit that. I've been wanting to say that, but I said, they probably think I'm a
The word woke originated in the black community, not liberal colleges or mother's basements of 30-year-olds who don't shout. Woke stems from AAVE, African American Vernacular English, or as Garrett Morris called it, Ebonics. The analogy of Ebonics being ebony and phonic. Hence, Ebonics is the way through which the black communities put their own unique words and sounds together to form the way they talk to the people they call their own. In earlier research going into the origins of AAVE, one an extremely white academic perspective, while the second, the Creolist hypothesis, gets right the true origins of AAVE. Thousands upon thousands of suffering black people connecting to each other through Creole-based linguistics, weathering the trauma of slavery through reclaiming language. Now, how do we get back to woke? Written about in a wonderful article by Kendra Franklin in Reclamation magazine, she talks about the ways AAVE was mocked and derided in a public setting for decades, including minstrel shows. Now in the modern day, being co-opted by white people in a horrifying way, including the word woke, we've grown so familiar hearing in such a visceral context. It's also very important to highlight AAVE isn't monolithic and can shift and change from area to area. Where white people are doing wrong, besides stealing languages that aren't theirs, which is a very common theme in colonialism, they mix and mingle different region-specific Ebonic words like they're all the same thing. Completely misunderstand any of the words, so why study it? You know, they call it ghetto, improper, or broken English. Use it for your gain, but you won't honor it, respect it, or see it with any intellectual weight. They use Ebonic words for comedy. Use it to invoke aggression. They use it to put things down. Put it under the label or guise of Gen Z language. We're all guilty of this, mind you, me included. So much of AAV is co-opted. Something as small as gyat, cooked, dap me up, or something as big as political language in woke. In its truth doesn't mean the presence of black people, women, or queer people. Woke means to be conscious of disparities and to act. So yes, Star Wars is woke if that's how you want to say it. Wrong in doing something about it is woke, then you're not going to have a lot of stories left without wokeism. Our struggles are connected. Just like the Force, the strangle of empires or the empire connects us. It penetrates us and brings us together.
I think your pain and your heartbreak are unprecedented in the history of the world, but then you read. It was the books that taught me the things that tormented me most were the very things that connected me with all the people who were alive, who had ever been alive.
It also matters that you are watching creators who are more deeply investing the videos that they're making about everything that is going on right now. Like FD Signifier, all day. Alice Capel, Afterthoughts, Talus the Introvert. There's so many creators out there who make really fulfilling, informative, vastly important videos right now in this burning world of ours. In Journey into the Dark Head, Studio Mir, a South Korean animation studio famous for bangers like Legend of Korra and Voltron, Legendary Defender, takes a swing at the eternal question of speculative fiction sci-fi, which is, if you know the future, can you and should you do something about it?
For starters, the animation in this joint is godly. It's so smooth, dreamy, reminding me almost of Peach Momoko in the art design as well. We start with this temple of sorts of fortune scrawlers, capturing this special water on the rocks that reveals the future, almost like a Rorschach painting that's prescient. Our main character, Aura, a pilot raised on Dolgarok, experiences a prophetic vision in the water that could change the course of the war between the Sith and the Jedi forever. 3 shapes or figures? Is it 2 or 3? People or monsters? She brings up this idea to the leader of the group, but he refuses this idea immediately. They must observe the future. Record it, but never interfere. He says her will isn't strong enough, but does that even make sense? What purpose is there to see bad things happening in the future but never prevent it? What solace do you have in that? A culpability in what will be? She calls for them to tell the Jedi Council about what she has seen, so sometime later she brings it to the attention of the Jedi Council despite the warning she received. Some members of the Council are critical of Aura's plan to destroy the Dark Head, to turn the tide of the war, but one woman just says,
Well, let's trust the Force then.
The Council approves this mission, but under one condition. Jedi has to accompany her. We meet Toll, a former Padawan made Jedi by the death of his mentor, Light and Dark. That's what this short is about, ultimately. In the animation, there's this heavy contrast of light and dark, but even more, we see the inner battle of Toll between fear and rage, between light and dark, and Aura's desperate gamble to bring light to the darkness. We see a flashback of the horrific moment when Toll's mentor was killed. Seriously visceral violence for Star Wars. This speaks to Toll's frame of mind at this one point. He lives in that one failure, that one fear. Toll is a fatalist Jedi who believes that if they're not taking the fight to them immediately, they're going to die eventually. He's not angry. He's just afraid. Aura and Toll meet, initially underestimating each other in a funny buddy cop-like dynamic. Aura sees Toll as the shorty he is, an impediment to what she's trying to do. Toll calls Aura not a real pilot because she's using autopilot, trying to get under her skin. He doesn't believe her plan is going to work, too far-fetched. Aura, a strong-willed fortune teller interfering with the fates. And Toll, a scarred, snarky Jedi scared of dying or losing someone else. They come to a city on Dolgarok to find their way to the statues from the beginning. The city around them beautiful but dirty. A neon Japanese style cityscape a la Akira or Blade Runner. Speaking of Asian influences in this short, I should note that this is a Korean studio and is the one short in this season that was recorded in their native language primarily and dubbed over in English, lending itself to an authenticity that spreads into the story and these characters themselves. The team behind this short, blending common Star Wars iconography and ideas with Korean culture.
Our first go-to reference was definitely the Star Wars franchise, and then we took inspiration from Korean cultural assets and ancient artworks. Our team visited the National Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art for the Korean art exhibition to do deeper research. Our focus was trying to find balance between Korean aesthetics and the Star Wars essence.
From the very first Star Wars movie, these stories have been indicative of communications between cultures and different art forms. From Kurosawa's samurai films, which were also in conversation with John Ford's Western films, to Alex Raymond's Flash Gordon. From this blend of cultures and texts, we get one of the greatest, most eternal stories in modern science fiction. Even though Tol and Aurra are on the mission, on their way to doing what might turn the tide of the war, evil is moving. Tol sees a Sith cult carrying incense that incites harmful visions in him. Sensing danger, there's a Sith overlooking the city, the Sith that killed his mentor. As the pair of them are flying towards the statue site, the Sith chases them down via ship till they crash for a moment. By a stroke of luck, they manage to recover, making their way up the mountain, making the jump through the clouds with the Sith tailing behind them. Man, this shot, just turn around, the shot clouds is crazy. The three of them land on this circular station in the clouds that connects the two statues. One for the Sith, one for the Jedi, presumably. Tol and the Sith trade words as well as blades because the two of them are bonded in a more visceral way than any person can be bonded, and that's trauma. The scar tissue that connects these two people and controls Tol's happiness is something I think any one of us can understand. And what do you do with that pain? You fight. Massively love the choreography here. Some of the best lightsaber dueling in some time. On some Duel of the Fates energy. Aurra sets up the bombs on the statue, but then, as the Jedi and Sith fight in the broken crater into the structure, each of the statues begin to exhibit a balance or entanglement of light and dark, red and blue, entwined fates. She remembers the image on the rock. The images become clear. The third image is her. She made the prophecy happen by trying to avoid it. She did all this because she believed she might change something, but what if she does this and it destroys everything? Everyone. Jedi and Sith alike. Tol kills the Sith, getting justice for his master. Aurra sets off the bombs. Tol free falls, unconscious as the whole structure collapses. Aurra dives in after him, waking him up. The two of them clinging together, parachuting down. This is a story about two people who have lost faith, lost hope in things ever getting better. And even though they destroyed the Dark Head, killed the Sith, everything remains uncertain.
Nothing is fixed. Light and dark will always coexist. And if nothing is set in stone, that means there will always be hope. We are always caught in the tide of uncertainty, but the next wave carries as much hope as it does despair. Ada, I actually really needed this mission. And I think you did too.
Struggle with faith. I grew up with an air of hope around everything, but the more I became conscious of the structures that strangle and exploit people, the harder faith became. Is there a place for faith like Tol's when The world is on fire when the fuels of hate and division are stronger than anything else. When people are dying, just like numbers on the charts of every world leader. Holds faith real or practical? It makes me think of something that the Doctor said in Doctor Who.
While there's snow, there's hope.
Change. Seasons change. And when things change, it gives an opportunity for a better tomorrow. And sometimes the only way to bring about a better tomorrow is fighting back in secret.
Man, is the art of this short beautiful. Starting rain shot, very sketchbook-esque art style. This is The Spy Dancer, a short about trauma, wanting to move on, but feeling the need to fight back. The Spy Dancer is produced by Studio La Cachette, a French studio known for Primal and Love, Death, and Robots episode Sucker of Souls. Julian Shang co-wrote, designed, and directed this short with a simple principle in mind.
I like when a story is subtle but direct, with a sense of scale, drama, and strong emotions.
Simply, a dancer who lost her son to the Empire spies on the Empire while putting on a show at the cabaret. The main dancer, Loi, the people around her want to bring the fight to the Empire, join the rebellion in whatever way they can. But she just misses her son. They distract clueless stormtroopers by putting on a grand scale acrobatic dancing show. Incredible dancing movement. The choreographer deserves a raise and a half. She falls mid-act when she sees a sinister figure in the balcony, someone she has history with. We see a flashback of her past, an Empire official who took her child. A big theme present throughout this short is, what does it mean to be free? She isn't in slavery like the Pit, but her heart is certainly fettered. Fettered. What does that mean? Fetter, according to Oxford Languages, describes fetter, the noun, as a chain or manacle used to restrain a prisoner, typically placed around the ankles. How can you be free physically yet shackled spiritually, enslaved emotionally? She is trapped in the trauma of the Empire. When she attempts an assault on the figure in the balcony, she hesitates, realizing it wasn't who she thought it was. The Empire official orders the troopers to stop her as she hits the ground. Stormtroopers attack, but she's simply too goated. Her clothing is nearly a superpower. Like, seriously, just like the rest of Star Wars Visions, this is just pure joy to watch unfold. I really love the supporting cast here. A chase ensues. She and the Empire official. She sees his face. It's not the man from the flashback, something familiar. Throughout the fight, she realizes if it's not the man who stole her son, then it's her son is alive. Her son is alive. What better way to fight against fascism than reclaiming what's been stolen, who's been stolen? Fascism wins when the commodification of everything we know to be true can occur without protest. The commodification of bodies, the commodification of souls, and most of all, the commodification of community. and all these previous episodes have proven, is that one of the most powerful and visceral connections one can have in this life is parent and child. There is no greater infiltration of the evil empire than exposing to the rank and file that they stole his life away. Once you start seeing the threads of exploitation, you can't stop seeing it. Those threads, much like the Force, connect us all.
I have a bad feeling about that. Where was I? I've already talked about, the idea of Star Wars becoming woke all of a sudden. And it hits at something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and it's this. Does politics supersede art, or is it the other way around? Or can they coexist at all?
Artists like Nemesis show you can make great art that appeals to many while not losing who you are in the process. And part of who you are is what you care about, and what she cares about is Palestine, her home, Nema's very existence, and as time has gone on, her art is a statement of rebellion, a statement of resistance. A similar thing can be said of queer creatives like Caroline Kingsbury and Nicole Maines in an age of TERF-motivated bills in the US and abroad. To be yourself bluntly can be resistance. But that's not all it is. To be yourself in quiet without action is silence. And to borrow from a piece of art popular during the Reagan administration and the AIDS crisis, silence equals death.
I've been preoccupied with this question as of late. It's just been rattling in my head. Does making art about injustice in the world mean anything? Does talking about genocide or oppression through metaphors and similes, hinting at the dangers of fascism and bigotry, create anything except noise? Does poetry have meaning when bombs are hitting the ground?
The first episode of Star Wars Visions Volume 2, Sith, puts forth the wild concept of being an artist in the Star Wars universe. We have this ex-Sith apprentice in hiding, making art. This short was directed by Rodrigo Blaze, Spanish animation veteran who worked on WALL-E and Up previously, through the Spain-based El Guiri Studios.
Here, in Madrid, there's a very inspired trip you can take. An art walk between museums that are very close to each other, from the Museo Nacional del Prado to the Museo Reina Sofía. These are two museums where you can see a history of painting, from Velázquez and Goya to Picasso and Dali, and many more. You really get to see the journey of figurative painting to the birth of abstract art.
This artistic history and insane expressiveness is all over this short, from the art style of the characters being a mixture of a Spider-Verse-like stylistic CG with a painterly finish, almost like Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, for some American comparisons. The contrast between light and dark is the center of this short. The shadows want to be part of the painting. Lola, the former Sith, along with her droid buddy E2, are running away from the dark side, running from the dark path she might take. The big narrative question of this short is, can the dark side and the light side coexist while creating a positive end? This almost feels like it's in conversation with Journey to the Dark Head. The question of balance between good and evil, and even more, what if they mixed? The light and dark is realized in an oil painting. In color theory, in regards to oil painting, to create a darker color, you can't just take black and mix it with your base. There is a law of harmonious colors. Colors that reside close to each other on a color wheel, and you can create darker colors by mixing with a darker version of the same hue, or a complementary color. Now, why am I teaching you about color theory and oil painting? Because art, more closely, in oil painting, adjacent in the Star Wars universe, is the medium through which Blaze chooses to tell this story. While Lola is working on this painting and exploring outside her ship for inspiration, she's discovered by her former Sith teacher and hunted down until she has to fight for her life. As the two of them fight in her ship, which, as discussed before, is her canvas. So the more their blades connect, the more the canvas reacts. We get patterns like woven stories of indigenous peoples past. Sparks of light, intent for harm, ballet of blades. She makes the canvas anew. He tries to force the darkness back onto her, manipulate her canvas, let it control her. The canvas is split between light and dark. The infinite possibility of the white space and jagged conflict of the darkness inside. But then she realizes. Now, with newfound confidence, balance of light and dark, self-actualization, she defeats her master. But she is no Sith. Just because you have darkness inside doesn't mean it controls you. You can control that balance, the paint strokes you make. The short ends with a binary sunset, much like A New Hope. Almost a symbolic representation of the war between light and dark, now confidently in relationship with each other. When we live in harmony with our darker natures as well as our brighter, we are able to create something beautiful and dangerous for those in power who might seek to strangle art and action that defies them. Nothing is more indicative of that defiance than In the Stars. As I was talking about earlier with the woven stories of the indigenous peoples, In the Stars seems to draw from the same well. This short was created by the Chilean animation studio Punk Robot Studio. Man, that just is the sickest name, and it's really indicative of the themes this short is imbibed with. From the get-go, you can really tell how raw and real the story director Gabriel Osorio is telling is, and it's from the textures, the setting to the character themselves. During the production of this short, the team took a trip to Patagonia. While there, they took 3D scans of the scenery to make this story as authentic to the experiences and struggles of the indigenous people, the Selknam or the Anawo. And honestly, it really shows. Plus, it's just so cool to see a studio like this pay homage to a culture in the Anawo so earnestly and authentically through the lens of Star Wars. Osorio goes on to talk about how the role the Empire plays in the short is very much addressing the role the Chilean state played in hunting down and killing many of the Anawo people, not unlike the many indigenous tribes who were murdered or pushed out in my own country.
Also, I hate that it needs to be said, but genocide anywhere is unacceptable. Whether it's Palestine, Congo, Iran, Ukraine, what have you. Death and oppression slide, the dial moves and moves to include everybody else. Morality can't and shouldn't be optional.
Can I just say how much I love the look of this film? It's a lot of miniatures and 3D scans of real nature artifacts, and the animation just sings. As I expressed before, this is very much an indigenous motivated vision. You see it in the character designs, the attention to detail, the developed culture that feels so alive. The atmosphere is grim, danger everywhere, These two siblings, the last of their people, can be snuffed out at any moment, so they've got to keep moving. The little one, Tashina, wishes to be able to wish harm away. Ashy snow is falling all around them. There's a very palpable texture to everything, the scenery around them, the characters themselves, and the snow of the dead.
You can't keep painting. We need that water to survive.
I'm not thirsty.
What's more important to survival? To keep hope alive through art, or to merely survive through needs? Is art a luxury? Wide as I am, I still relate to the sibling dynamic a lot. A caring older sibling who just wants to do enough for things to be okay, and a younger sibling who dreams big dreams and can't help but hope. I think we all have that relationship in our lives in one way or another. Tashina is trying to keep the culture alive, keep mom alive. She's trying to keep her mother's traditions alive, while Khotun, the older sister, is struggling to keep them alive. Man, I really love the flutist/drum assisted soundtrack. It adds a special flavor to this short. We see the story of how all this devastation came to be, played out in the art of Stardust. The Empire took their water, poisoned their world, created the smog above, and killed the vegetation. Sometimes I fear that's where we're headed ourselves.
Mom became a star.
Look! She cannot see us anymore. You know that without the starlight, the pain will fade away.
Is she right? Is the art futile? Has the Empire won already? Is this all pointless? Should I stop recording? Because what does any of this matter if people are being taken off the streets? If people are dying every day by bomb or gas or murder or whatever these despots can conjure next? Why does making videos even matter when no one will listen, when no one will change? The two of them run out of water, so Khotun sets out to go get water from the Empire base. The two of them fight for a moment before this, but Khotun wins. Despite her telling Tashina to not follow her, she does and is seen and almost captured. A chase then ensues. They back each other up, then we see the split between the two.
We have to go back. Believe me, we can beat them.
No! We have what we need.
It's almost like two sides of the proverbial revolution. The rebel and the survivalist. What is more true? That we need to fight back and reclaim what's ours, even if it costs us our life, or we need to survive at the bare minimum, fearing death at the hands of the Empire. Tashina's perspective is possibly so naive it doesn't make sense, given that she's a child, but I think putting the two of their perspectives together is a great way to look at a full revolutionary life.
Forgive me if I'm monologuing for too long, but let me have this. Tashina represents organizing, fighting back directly, what we usually think of as revolution. Khotun represents what's just as important, and that's securing physical needs, food, water, shelter, things we need to thrive as much as survive. Not to get too history-brained, but these two perspectives were very much what W.E.B. Du Bois and Booker T. Washington believed respectively. They're both genius men when it comes to the Civil Rights era and the Reconstruction era of U.S. history, but they also represent two halves of one whole. Don't trust my judgment on them. Read for yourself, learn for yourself, form your own opinion. Back to the short.
After Tashina tries to use the Force to destroy the base, is thrown down towards the water below, but Khotun saves her at the last second with the Force. Then they resolve to destroy the base together, flooding it. They both wake up on land closer than ever. The base is now completely destroyed. The clouds open up for the first time in a long time. Stars in sight. Vegetation growing again. The art returns. The mark of love.
Where was I? Let me check my notes. I'm talking to the kids in the room here. You're still here, right? Have you ever been stuck somewhere, stuck in your old town, and just wanted to escape? These days, you could very well call that Old Town America. But let's just not go there yet.
The short Screecher's Reach hits at the heart of that very feeling. I love when Star Wars is just allowed to make The Witch meets Stand By Me in one package. Cartoon Saloon, baby. My goats are back at it again. I love the world building at the beginning of this short so much. It sets such an effective tone. Thousands of children in bed surrounded by machinery. Slow pan up into labor, and more labor. Child labor, to be specific. The look of this worker camp kind of reminds me of Fallout in a roundabout way. I guess dystopian echoes dystopian. The main character, Doll, decides it's time to get out of their town. Screecher's Reach. On a side note, I desperately want to make love with these backgrounds or eat them. No in between. I love the Irish folklore they inject this whole story with. There's a steady through line of eeriness you feel throughout. But the only way Doll navigates this is through trusting the providence of this mysterious medallion of some religious or sentimental importance.
We had a couple of ideas we pitched, but one which had the best hook and twist was an idea from Jason Tamamagi. Imagining a take on the cave in The Empire Strikes Back, what if it was not just a test of the mind, but something very real you had to face? We had kind of an interesting ending to get to, and then imagined the backstory.
There's some fable or folktale of a ghost or witch in this cave. Something mysterious, something unknown, something wrong. As Doll and her friends go on this journey, there is a palpable question that you can feel in her face. And how she talks with her friends. Can she dream of a better life? Even if they're not in it? What's worth more? Going to a place you'd be more fulfilled or possibly more happy, or sticking in it? In a hard place with people you love. When she asks one of her friends, they respond trying to be happy for that prospect, affirming their desire because they care more about their future than their own. They enter the cave, not sure what might be inside, but her friends support her despite their fear. Screecher's Reach looks infected with some kind of evil. But what? Do bad places test us? Is that the meaning trials hold? Or is there any meaning to the bad in our lives at all? Or is religious meaning merely coping with our circumstances? And yes, the Force is Star Wars' equivalent of religious fervor. Doll holds the medallion close. I love this creepy choir soundtrack. Please just give me a Star Wars horror movie already. The monster shows herself. I love how this witch is depicted like chaotic scribblings. A really good way to communicate horror through this animation style. Doll can't help but wonder what this monster really is, needing a way out regardless of the cost. Her friends escape while Doll stays behind, her curiosity getting the better of her. The witch is a Sith. She slashes at her. She crawls toward a higher opening through calling upon the Force. A rock falls down on the witch, but then as more light floods into the cave, we see the witch as just a person. A rotten, disheveled horror, but a person nonetheless. This is a sobering moment. She kills the Sith with her saber. The medallion speaks to her with a glowing red. Something sinister masked as divine. She manages to leave the cave and meet up with her friends, but in the middle of their conversation, someone arrives by ship. An angelic figure offering sanctuary to her. Another life. Another place. She did what she had to. It was the only choice, right? She was strong. Rationalized murder. Was that an angel or a demon? Was the witch a monster or a victim? Who did she leave with? Is yearning for a different place, a better place, worth the risk, worth the cost of the people you're living? Dahl begrudgingly made her choice. Was it the right one? Will she survive the trip? Will her soul survive the trip? How long will her friends last at the worker camps? All those questions left unanswered. Thankfully, we have one more episode, which acts as a mirror to this one. A hopeful glimmer. Open your ears, open your hearts, and take a listen to Ao's song. Love the title shot. It's just so cute. As you know, I love me some background painting, and this short is no different. Nice sheen. Don't know how to describe it, but the rocky background strikes me as Ghibli-esque. In this short, we follow Ao living on the planet Korba, a planet known for its kyber crystal refineries after they were corrupted by the dark side. I think something that really tells the story that this short is going for is how it came together, specifically how the directors came together.
The first time we actually met, we decided to go to this dark hidden cafe. We nervously both sat in the corner and just started talking. We spoke about what we individually liked about animation and what we thought was important in the original open-ended pitch for the film.
Both of these storytellers came in with very different instincts when it came to telling stories. Nadia Derry's character animation and character performance, and Daniel Clark, art director / production designer. This is not even touching on the fact that they didn't even talk to each other before being hired for the project. So what is Ao's song? This short is animated by the South African studio Triggerfish Animation. As Clark describes in an interview on StarWars.com, the big artistic inspirations behind this short were similar inspirations behind the original Star Wars films. The art of Mobius, World War II vehicles, and John Ford westerns. But even more than all of this short is incredibly ingrained in the culture of South Africa, which is pretty relevant with American art coming onto the scene, ingrained in the musicality and folklore of African culture in Sinners and South of Midnight.
South Africa has 11 official languages, and there is a lot of musicality to all of them. Whether it's a wedding or a funeral or a protest, there's always singing and dancing. It's just part of South Africa's DNA.
It's pretty obvious that music has a large presence in Star Wars.
Whether it's the fanfare or the battle hymn of the Duel of the Fates, or the ever-evolving musical backdrop, musical language of the greatest, oldest space opera there is, you better watch for the changes.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
I love how much every one of these stories connect, but also feel so unique and individual. I know I was already saying that this short is a perfect parallel to Screecher's Reach, and it is, but it also ties so well to I Am Your Mother or In the Stars, because the power of a story like this is it's so specific and unique to the culture that it's drawing from, that it achieves this universal specificity that can draw all of us together. And that's what Star Wars does, right? It brings us together. Well, at least it did at one time. I really love the design of Ao's species. It's so cute and perfectly Star Wars. Ao has dangerous, volatile abilities, powerful voice. Her father discourages these abilities too loud. She still spies on her dad while he works with some lady who we learn is named Kratu. He works with kyber crystals, the substance with which lightsabers channel light energy. Ao has some connection with crystals. Musically, spiritually, the kyber crystals call to her. Her voice makes kyber volatile, hot almost. After she almost destroys a kyber crystal, seemingly, her father scolds her, asking for some restraint from her, which in the words of many people talking to their kids can be considered purely unadulterated silence. He does this lovingly, but it makes her fear herself. And I'm sure this is an experience shared by many people with their parents. I know I can relate. Ao takes care of animals in her spare time, but the crystals still call to her. She steals a safety helmet and travels to the caves. Man, the camera movement here is just incredible. This is where she finds a kyber crystal cave. The music calls to her in the middle of the cave, the crystals glowing as she sings. She feels free for a second. She feels comfortable in her voice being heard, but her dad's there too, and he's scared. Her dad's fear is what makes it so volatile. They both fall down, but are saved by Kratu, the woman from earlier, a Jedi. As everything is falling apart, the crystals reacting, the caves crashing, Ao sings. Her voice calms the crystals through purification. When everything calms, Kratu is in awe of Ao's abilities, her song that healed the mountains. She asks Ao to come with her that she might refine her abilities and do more good with it. Though her father is apprehensive, in a warm embrace, Ao leaves to see the stars and sing. Star Wars is complicated. It was started by an automobile nerd in the 70s who was friends with Francis Ford Coppola and went from making hypersexual sci-fi dystopian 1984 type art film to making possibly the most popular intellectual property in American cinema. Star Wars is complicated. Lucas's original 6 films have so much to say, but lack of any of the political and sociological know-how to navigate the very ideas that compose the narrative framework of the Star Wars films. Yes, we all know the clip.
You did something very interesting with Star Wars, if you think about it. The good guys are the rebels. They're using asymmetric warfare against a highly organized empire. I think we call those guys terrorists today. We call them Mujahideen, we call them Al-Qaeda.
When I did it, they were Viet Cong.
Exactly. So were you thinking of that at the time? Yes. So it was a very anti-authoritarian, very kind of 60s against the man kind of thing, nested deep inside of a fantasy.
Or a colonial, you know, we're fighting the largest empire in the world.
Right.
and we're just a bunch of hayseeds in coonskin hats that don't know nothing.
That's right.
And it was the same thing with the Vietnamese.
Yep.
The irony of that one is in both of those, the little guys won.
Right.
And the big, highly technical empire,
The English Empire, right?
English
British
Empire, the American Empire, lost.
Yeah.
That was the whole point.
I agree with all of this. I'm not going to touch the fact that James Cameron is here and is actually one of the worst storytellers to try to tackle political issues like indigenous peoples genocide in the Blue People movies. But that's another video for another day. Star Wars is complicated. We call it science fiction because it's known to be the American sci-fi story above everything else. But I think a more apt description would be sci-fi fantasy. Why am I throwing these seemingly random threads at you? My intention is to express the variety of meanings that Star Wars can hold. And what's another word for variety? Well, diversity. We all know the biggest buzzword in the circles of Star Wars theory and other right-winger critics of Disney Star Wars is diversity, equity, and inclusion. Why do we say this is a bad thing? Let's look into the rationale of it, if there is any to be found. They look at the picture on the screen and see there is no one or very few that look like them, so they rationalize. Oh, this is just a move to get all the white people out of the picture. Insert a bunch of woke propaganda. I think there's something funny about this phenomenon, and it's the fact that these people are, on the base level, experiencing the very same cognitive dissonance that people of color and queer people will experience every day. But they experience this without the structure of oppression and with the benefit of privilege. I'm trying to approach this as good faith and understanding as possible, despite you not doing the same. But I digress. Science fiction has existed since Mary Shelley's Frankenstein in 1818. Yes, science fiction and horror was created by a woman. This isn't revisionism. It's called reality. But let's also consider, science fiction has existed since 1818. That is 207 years this year. And let's weigh the amount of white stories against the black stories, or the white stories against the Latin stories, or, you know, the indigenous Boucher stories, or the African stories, or Japanese stories, or the Palestinian stories, so on. You have lived at the center of these stories for the majority of the time the genre has existed. All I ask of you is consider the stories I just shared with you. The people living in these frames. The stories told. The themes expressed. The creators behind every brushstroke. Such a breadth of themes and stories from so many different countries, creators, and studios. All I ask of you is to step out of your comfort zone, exit the bubble, pop it if you must. Meet someone new. Meet someone who isn't like you. You want to know how empathy can exist? When we step out our front door and meet our neighbors. Ask them about their lives, their days at work, what their childhood was like, the stories of motherhood and nights with their siblings. You'll find we're much more alike. And now the people like me who are scared, desperately terrified as the ropes of fascism are strewn around our necks. Consider the stories I just shared. We need to foster community. do what we must. Care for each other. Never forget each other. Secure each other's needs. Love on our family members. Fight with art. Fight with every ounce of will and being we have. Most importantly, use your voice, because the one thing every great science fiction story echoes is there is evil in the world, and it calls us to use our voice to call it out.